Then you got to go to the other side of the city.
That's right.
You didn't watch. Hey everyone, welcome to 5v5 Live. We're going to start with EU. And if you look at the standings, Eric, it's like a mismatch of all these teams that you really didn't expect to see up there. G2's not even at the top of the leaderboard. You got Splyce up there, Misfits up there, Fnatic, UOL. Of these teams, who do you think is the best?
I mean, yeah, it's hard to say. It's really just a roadblock all in there. And G2, like you said, is below 500 for the first time since they came into the LCS. But I really like what Fnatic's been doing as a team, and really they've only lost 3 games the entire time, and the one series they lost to Roccat was, I'm going to call it a bit of an anomaly. When the opposing top laner is 1-13 and your AD is 11-1, you should probably win that game. It looked like they just got a little complacent there, but most of their series wins have been super clean throughout. Their macro game's been on point, and Caps and Rekkles have been playing amazing.
Yeah, but going back to that Faxi bit, I'm pretty sure that was the most deaths ever by a team that actually won the game. With 13,
awful.
It's pretty impressive more than anything, still being able to win the game. But yeah, I mean, Fnatic, they look almost unstoppable right now, the way they play the game with they're always on the same page with Soaz and Broxa, really supporting, Rekkles in that bottom lane. They're always going across the map. Soaz is probably in the bot lane more than any other top laner in the EU LCS. Yeah. And then Fnatic, their goal lead at 15 minutes is 1,300 almost. So, I mean, their early game is incredible. And you just look at this roster, the way they're playing, it's hard to say that any team right now is playing better than Fnatic.
Yeah, the thing that they're going to have to do going forward is prove that they can play comps other than reckless split pushing.
Has been doing that a lot.
Yeah, that's kind of been their go-to style, and opposing teams are just kind of like, well, we'll figure it out. We'll beat it. They haven't been able to, but especially with these Kennen nerfs coming up, where Rekkles might not be able to get his hands on that guy in the bottom lane. We're gonna have to see how they can adapt and still stay at the top.
Yeah, one team I might put up there with Fnatic as the best team is the Unicorns of Love. Just the bot lane is so much more improved from last split with Samix and Hylissang in the bot lane, especially now with the meta you see in the support position. You can get playmakers like Blitzcrank, like Thresh, and Hylissang loves to do that kind of stuff. Not a big fan of the Karma. He likes to be out there and
not as fun.
Hook those enemy champions, but my concern with UOL is if you look at their warding rates, it's in the bottom of the EU LCS, so they don't really get the vision across the map, and you see it from time to time in their gameplay. They just lose control of the map and drop the game from there. Yeah,
there's a lot of face checking going on by Hylissang and other guys when they're trying to do those wards, but they have no coverage whatsoever. And also, Exile has really struggled early in the split for UOL, which makes it more impressive that they're still winning the majority of their games with their mid laner, who's been great in past splits for them, but yeah, he's struggling so far.
Well, everyone was saying Exile's going to be the new top 3 mid laner in EU, but he really hasn't shown that to me. It's more Caps who's been surprising, and not his rookie split anymore. He looks great now.
Yeah, and Caps has more pressure on him to do damage in these team fights with Rekkles in side lane split pushing.
Exactly. So, mentioned G2's not up there. They're at 2 and 3. I'm not sure what's going on with them. What do you think? What's G2's problem right now?
Well, I think you can't really pinpoint it on one thing. They've had a few things going on. Trick has been definitely inconsistent. You saw games where he'll go on Kha'Zix and 1v9 and get 7 kills early on and completely carry the game. And then the next game, it's like they don't even have a jungler. He's just completely invisible throughout the whole game. So I think that's been the main thing. And for some reason, their communication on stuff just seems a bit off. Their rotations, they're playing too reactionary to other teams, and I think the overall competition in EU has just gotten a bit better aside from the bottom 3 teams. But everyone else has gotten better, and they can't just wait for them to make mistakes. G2 has to be proactive.
Yeah, EU as a region looks great. Last split, it was those 4 teams at the top, the UOL, Fnatic, G2, and then G2 obviously. But I mean, now you add Splyce and Misfits into that block, and it's a whole different split. For G2, I don't actually think they're that bad. I mean, when you look at who they've lost to Fnatic, the Unicorns, and to Misfits, all in 3 games. So they haven't lost any in a sweep, anything like that. So I don't really think they're playing that bad. Again, they are reactionary, and they're not being proactive on their own style. And part of that, I think, is the MSI effect. You had that tournament they went deep into, took a vacation after that. Trick and Expect went to Korea. No vacation, yeah. But Trick and Expect went to Korea. And then from there, it just seems like this roster's taken some time after that week 1 victories with the subs, surprisingly. All of a sudden, the team looks worse. But I do think they'll figure it out. I mean, they're going to have to take another break for this Rift Rivals tournament, but in time, I think they'll get back on track and get back up into that top spot.
They also just came in and completely dominated the league, so expectations are insanely high for them. And the fact that this is the first time they're below 500, people are kind of freaking out, but I think come playoffs and even during Rift Rivals, you'll see G2 do pretty well.
I agree with you. They are the kings of Europe for a reason. They've won 3 consecutive splits.
Yeah.
So they're pretty good.
Pretty good.
Yeah. You can't trash talk them too bad, even though they're off to a slow start here. Now, you mentioned Rekkles earlier and his amazing play for Fnatic in that bottom lane. How is he getting away with it? He's played 3 champions the entire split. He's played Tristana, Twitch, and Kennen a whole lot. A whole lot of Kennen.
The staple 3 that every AD mains
Yeah.
in EU.
No Caitlyn, no Ashe, no Varus, none of those, meta champions. He's basically the only guy to bring out these other 3. And you've seen people try to pick it up, but haven't had the success that Rekkles has had. So what is it about his playstyle that's given him so much success, and all of a sudden Fnatic is up there at the top of the leaderboard?
I mean, he's just kind of throughout his career, he's almost been unjustifiably criticized for not having to be the main carry on a team. He's always been on these superstar-laced Fnatic teams, and then even when he went to Alliance playing with a guy like Froggen. But I think now he's just, so many resources are being funneled into him. He's getting so much farm on these side lanes, and it's just, he's so ahead, and he's basically in these smaller skirmishes where he's either 1v2ing or 2v2ing, because they almost always have a Shen on their team. And I think he's just shown that he excels mechanically. We know he's a god. He's a god of Europe mechanically. So in these small skirmishes, he's just really able to showcase that. And with the amount he's played Kennen, he's mastered that champion.
It's just incredible to watch him, because these champions are pretty much all in. With Tristana, you jump in and get that kill and get the reset. Twitch, you stealth in and try to assassinate somebody. And then Kennen, you actually have to get in there with your ult and be a super close range AD carry. But when you look at his stats, I mean, he's got 8 deaths in 14 games. He's got 9 perfect games where he hasn't died at all. And it's incredible to watch him do this and not give away a death at all, while still supplying CC and kill his opponents. I mean, you don't see this at all. One thing for him is that his damage percentage is actually like the lowest amongst EU LCS AD carries. Part of that is because he's on Kennen, not a super high DPS champion. And really supplies the CC more than anything else. But
and he's whacking minions and turrets most of the game as opposed to other champions. But yeah, that's why they have to rely on caps to play these super high damage control mages or assassins to kind of carry them in those team fights. But yeah, just Rekkles' KDA is so absurd. Kikis has more deaths in 2 games than Rekkles had in 14. Not the flame Kikis there.
No, that's not even...
That's like not even his fault. No. But that's just to showcase how insane Rekkles' stats are.
He's died 8 times.
Ridiculous.
In 14 games.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's absurd. For Rekkles, though, one thing to watch out for is, you mentioned the Kennen nerfs. Riot's trying to push it towards the AP Kennen again, because, as soon as someone tries to make something happen in the bottom lane...
No, can't do that.
Can't do that. Graves gone. AD Kennen likely gone.
More Ashe and Varus.
Yeah, please, bring it on. Also, the Galio nerfs might hurt as well with that channel time, because usually Fnatic likes to run that, protect the Rekkles comp with Shen or Galio as a substitute to that. So we'll see how Fnatic adjusts, but I'm sure Rekkles will get his fair share of champion choice. Whoever he wants, he gets to play.
I just hope he picks another obscure AD to come in. Maybe bring in an Urgod or something. Quinn would be exciting. That's a good split push champ.
Yeah, it is.
There you go, Rekkles. Play Quinn next
All in. Get in there. That's what it is. So also, Splyce and Misfits are 4-1 as well. Splyce is one of those teams who you can't really say they've got that big name player. Everyone is kind of, it's just a team, It's not one guy who stands out. You're not going to be like, oh, Rekkles. It's just Trashy and Wonder and Senkux and all these guys who form a team that makes a lot of sense on paper, and it seems like any one of them can carry it any time. Do you think that they're for real?
I mean, they've shown in the past they made it to Worlds when people were kind of like, well, we didn't expect this team to get to Worlds. And I admire that they didn't even make a single roster change coming into the spring split or coming into the summer splits. So these guys have great synergy together. I think they could definitely be at the top 4, top 3 team in EU. I think Splyce and Misfits both might actually be better than H2K. I think just the hype train around H2K has been going on for so many years now. And I think Misfits and Splyce just have overall better team play than them.
I agree with you on that. I mean, H2K really looks like just the Yankos team right now. Everything else is kind of confusing. I mean, Feveven and Yankos have great synergy, but outside of the top side of the map, the bot lane has really kind of dropped the ball this split so far. But again, Splyce, they're going against Fnatic this upcoming week, which is going to be a pretty good matchup. They're finally doing the Group A, Group B cross.
Yeah.
So Fnatic against Splyce. Interesting matchup on paper. Everyone's going to say, oh, Fnatic in 2. But I think Splyce can make it a close series and maybe even potentially beat Fnatic. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, you saw, I think some people were thinking UOL might 2-0 them or something, have some dumpster clown fiesta games, but you saw Splyce really responded well in some of those games, even when they were getting behind. They rebounded. I think they're a really calm team. They don't panic even when they're down a couple thousand gold early. So yeah, I don't think Fnatic will easily 2-0 them there, and I think that's a great statement opportunity for Splyce to show that they can hang with the top teams in Europe.
Yeah, the thing to watch in that series is going to be if Fnatic can get an early edge like they do so often more than not. I mean, Splyce's weakness is probably in that early game. They don't really make too many plays, kind of play it safe and scale up, and then their mid to late game is actually exceptional. So if they can just hold on and maybe keep it close with Fnatic in the early goings, where Fnatic just loves to make those early tower dives, then Splyce definitely has a chance. And then another team, Misfits, I mean, I've been pretty impressed. They started off slow, the whole max lore in for Cacao thing, but all of a sudden this team has picked up a ton of wins over big teams lately, and I'm almost convinced that they can take a top 3 spot as well.
Yeah, I mean, all their carries basically, Alfari, PoE, and Hansama have all just consistently been playing really well, and you look at their minions throughout the entire game, they're almost all sitting around 10 a minute in their game, so I've been really impressed by them, and PoE specifically, I mean, for a couple years now, he's been one of the top mids in EU. And aside from that little stint with Origin, which we'll forget
Never
that
happened.
happened. Origin just kind of curses whoever plays on that team. But pretty much his whole career, PoE's been a dominant player who's played some interesting champions, and he's dominated for them so far. So yeah, I did not expect them to be this well subbing out Cacao, but yeah, they look like a top team.
Yeah, Ignar's another guy, along with Mickey on Splyce, that really benefits from the whole meta shift to the Blitzcrank and the Thresh. They love to get out there and make those plays, but for Power of Evil, I mean, when he was with the Unicorns of Love back in the day, he was that Syndra one trick, and now he's completely changed. He's one of the more well-rounded guys, and this past week, in one series, he picked up 30 kills. 30 kills! And the 2 games he played Corki, he got 11 in both, and that's just absurd. So he's just a playmaking mid now, and he's really the guy for me that Misfits loves to run their entire offensive attack through. Let's get Power of Evil fed and then take it from there.
Yeah, I mean, on those control mages or someone like Corki who just sits back dealing damage in these team fights, he's shown that he just spaces himself so well in team fights. He rarely gets caught out in these key fights. He's just always dishing out the optimal amount of damage and hard carries, basically.
Exactly, and they're going to take on H2K. I think Misfits is going to take that one. But the premier matchup of the week, Eric, it's a doozy. It's the Mysterious Monkeys against Ninjas in Pajamas. Both teams 0-5 in matches and 0-10 in games, so they haven't won a single match. That's going to change, though. Who do you like? You like the Monkeys with the roster changes, or Nip with those 2 Koreans who have looked bad? Yes.
The saddest part is that it's so early that these guys are playing. I would like to wait a couple more weeks to see if they both...
last week.
Yeah, that would be amazing, because they'd both probably still have no wins at that point. So it's sad that eventually they do have to get on the board here. This will be...
How unfortunate, yeah.
This should be interesting because, you know, a lot of the bottom tier games in the NA LCS and EU LCS are always interesting. Just look back at that Dig game where guys were dying to creeps and Baron and towers at the same time. Maybe we'll get something like that, and the memes will live on from this game. But yeah, both these teams have definitely been struggling. I don't know how much of a difference Kikis and Amazing will make. Yeah, they're both veteran guys who have been on good teams, great teams even, but I don't think they're going to make a big enough difference. But maybe against Nip they will. You know what? I take that back.
Nip,
Against Nip, they'll take that back. I think the Monkeys will be able to get the win.
Yeah, I mean, for Monkeys, it's weird. I think Yuki at 80 carry has some potential, but the mid laner Kozq, when he pulls it to Katarina, it's just... You got
the signature champ.
It doesn't look like it. It looks like he's never played it before. But, I mean, I'll take the Monkeys just because they've got a bit more veteran presence. I know Nip has Shook and Nagne and all those guys, but
sometimes it's not a good veteran presence.
No.
Like, Shook, a guy who has been great at times and then has completely choked in some games. Luckily, there's nothing really to choke with here. You're just looking for your first win. There's not too much pressure, so.
Yeah, fair enough. Before we move on to NA, we're going to take a quick look at the best performers from this past week, Week 4. Let's see who performed the best in Week 4 of the NA and EU LCS.
Fnatic rebounded from their loss to Roccat in dominant fashion. Although the team is full of carries, Broxah stood out in Week 4. In their sweep against H2K, Broxah didn't die once while setting up kills for the team. Then in the bloodbath versus the Monkeys, he continued his calculated aggression. In the EU LCS, he leads all junglers in nearly every category, including kills, assists, and KDA, while still having the fewest deaths. Although he's guaranteed the Rookie of the Split award, he actually deserves it. Phoenix 1 picked up their first win of the split as Mike Yeung went undefeated on Nidalee. Against TL, he showed he could perform on champions other than Lee Sin and Nid. His Rek'Sai performance gave P1 a chance for a 2-0 week, and although they came up just short, Mike Yeung has drastically changed the look of Phoenix 1. Cloud9 also appears to be back on track, led by Jensen in the mid lane. Despite him having the fewest deaths amongst starting NA mid laners, he's still able to make plays. He single-handedly toppled Liquid with his Lucian, and then defeated Dignitas with his expertise on control mages. With a superb split thus far, Jensen may just be the top mid laner in NA. His 115 kills is far and away the most in North America.
Someday going to be tanking these guys for now. Pop here getting himself first and down. Jensen grabbing the kill. Cloud9 find themselves 2. Looks like they're about to make it 3. Altec will not stand against this long double kill for the Syndra.
TSM has quietly climbed the standings after a slow start, but Svenskeren has still been making noise. Criticized early in the split, Sven and TSM have rattled off 5 straight wins. Opposing teams continue to allow Svenskeren to pick up Lee Sin, which he has a 90% win rate with in summer 2017. Even with the Blind Monk banned away, Sven showed up on Gragas to take down Echo Fox. Despite being in a group with G2 and Fnatic, the Misfits are more than holding their own. On top of that, PoE is dominating in the mid lane. Against Vitality, twice did Power of Evil rack up 11 kills on Corki. In Game 3, he added another 8 to pick up 30 kills in one series. He now leads the EU LCS in kills and is definitely the point of emphasis in the Misfits' plan of attack. The Immortals find themselves all alone in first place, and a large part of that is the improved play of Flame. Against Dignitas, he consistently outplayed tower dives, staying alive and turning the gank around. With his improved communication, he can be yet another carry for this dangerous Immortals roster.
The turret reset. He needs to dive down towards the bottom members.
Holds up, means he's going to land a stun here on a shrimp, buying a bit more time. Stun's going to land there, gets the big heal lick. It's going to be Big, who's okay though. And now the float's back on the shrimp, and again, he just crushes down the spider. Itsy bitsy, the water spout is gone. The flash, the chase, someday Watson, the stun's going to land. He's put in the grand duel, and there's no...
Just letting you know, we're going to take your questions later on in the show too, so make sure you put them in the comments below, and we'll try to get to as many as possible. You saw Flame there, had an absolutely great week, and it has Immortals in first place at 7-1 on top of the NA LCS leaderboard. No TSM.
Everyone predicted.
Yeah,
everyone predicted.
No Cloud9, no CLG. It's Immortals in first place, which is insane to me, especially after the whole like Smithy Dardoch trade. Everyone's saying, "What are you doing? Dardoch's obviously better." But all of a sudden, it's Immortals in first. What's gotten them there?
Well, I think Smithy has helped some of the lanes, but I think basically across the board, every lane is playing better for Immortals coming into this split, especially that bot lane. Cody Sun was a meme last year. Everyone was ripping on the poor guy.
Cody Dunn. Cody Dunn.
Yeah,
pick one.
Any one of those. But now you look at that bot lane, and you could make a legitimate case for them being a top 3, top 4 bot lane in the NA LCS, which is something I thought I would never say in my existence.
No, it's definitely strange. Yeah, keep going.
And thank you. Pole Vaulter also is better than he was playing last split. He's been a consistent guy throughout his career, never been the hard carry of a team, and he's still not really, but he's held his own in the mid lane. He hasn't really ever fallen behind.
No.
And in the top lane, Flame, as you mentioned, has been amazing. He's 1v5ing guys under his turret. A couple of those games on Renekton was just insane. There were some pretty horrible dives, but
we'll get to that. Yeah,
really impressive by him. So really across the board, I could say Smithy has done that for them, and maybe he has to an extent, but I think just overall, all the lanes are playing better for Immortals.
Yeah, I mean, his teammates have praised him for really being like the voice of reason in game and bringing that shot caller, which I don't think Dardoch was last split. He's kind of more memey, as you could say. I don't know if that's a word or not, but he just kind of lets his emotions on his sleeves, whereas like Smithy's going to keep it calm and just, you know, this team is aggressive still, but they're calculated in what they do. They don't just go around the map and get kills like they did back when Rainover and Huhi were on the team. Let's just fight nonstop. They're really looking across the map. And for me, what Smithy's really done though is when he ganks, it more often than not actually gets them a kill and then into an objective. He doesn't just go and get a flash or fail the gank. It actually gets them further ahead. And with these solo laners and the bot lane just being probably top 3 across the board in their own position in NA, I really like what they're doing here. And you know, I was skeptical at first, but now after 4 weeks, it looks like they're a for real team.
Yeah, I mean, surprisingly, Smithy and Dardoch have pretty similar stats across the board so far this split. They have the same KDA, pretty similar kill participation, and first blood rate, which I'm hesitant about that stat. I don't know if that's actually true. But yeah, Smithy's just so efficient with his ganks. He won't go to any lane unless it's almost guaranteed that he'll get something positive out of it. Whereas Dardoch might hang around more, maybe just pop a flash or not get anything. But I think so far the trade's worked out for both teams. Yeah,
I think one thing you can exploit Smithy with is he usually goes back to those support style junglers. He kind of stays away from the Lee Sin, which we know he's not the best at. He can play it, but that's probably where you can exploit him if you ban out the Rekkles and the Elise. It's something you can go to. I know CLG had this plan to ban out Smithy, but then left open Rekkles in the jungle, and that kind of backfired, and Smithy just took it to them from there. So I think that's maybe one place you can take it to. But now let's shift over to Dardoch on CLG. CLG is not far behind them at 6-2. They just lost to Immortals. But I mean, for Dardoch, it's a little different story. I mean, sure they're winning, but I'm not so much convinced that it's him helping this team out as it is guys like Darshan and Huhi really stepping up themselves.
Yeah, I mean, Dardoch has games like he did on Rengar where he gets double-digit kills. He'll do stuff that Smithy probably won't, where he'll hard carry games. But it's that typical thing where his highs are probably higher and his lows are way lower than Smithy, who's more of a consistent guy. But he's been great for CLG, but yeah, you're right. The other lanes have been a lot better too. Darshan has 20 more kills than any other top laner in the LCS. So he's been super aggressive and going all out, playing those fighter-type bruiser champions that he's obviously excelled on throughout his career. And Huhi, a guy who gets a lot of flack on CLG, pretty much the most flack of any player on that team. He has been really consistent for them and been great on some of these assassins like Ari. He's really dominated games, and their bot lane is their bot lane.
Yeah, I mean, you can't really fault. Honestly, the worst performer to me so far on this team is probably Afro on some of these games. He's trying to make a play happen a bit too much. Yeah. People might not like that statement. People love their Afro move, but some games
he's been getting caught out a lot.
Yeah,
trying to ward or anything like that. He'll have a lot of deaths in these games.
Yes, he does. But again, part of that is CLG being this team that is just, we're going to fight. And it's incredible. They lead the NA LCS in kills and deaths because they're just always fighting. Even when they're behind, they have this mindset of, we're going to try to make plays happen. And if it goes poorly, we just lose quicker. And we're on to the next game, which honestly, it's refreshing to watch instead of just turtling in your base.
70-minute games. I mean,
I'm not a fan of it.
I think it's because they're confident in their team fighting and their communication. A guy like Afro leading the shot calling, obviously one of the premier leaders in the LCS. So yeah, I think they're confident even when they're behind to take these fights. Maybe sometimes a little overconfident, and that's when it comes to bite them, and they lose in under 30 minutes. But
yeah, and then again, for Dardoch, sometimes he gets overly aggressive in the opposing jungle, gets caught out, gives up first blood, and the team's behind from there. We've seen it happen a couple times in these series. Yeah. But he does really free up his solo laners to kind of just do their own thing. You've seen Darshan on these carry guys like Fiora, Huhi's on everything, including Aurelion Sol still, which boggles my mind. I don't know how he's still getting that champion, but another jungler who's had some success, my boy Mike Yeung, rookie of the split, lock it down. No one else can take that from him because he's the only rookie in the NA LCS. So you can call him Mike, rookie of the split, Yeung. Mike, don't call me Mike Yeung, whatever you want.
You could literally call him anything.
You could.
Soon you won't even need Mike Yeung. You'll just need like any combination of words as long as you repeat some of them. But yeah, I mean, he's really helped P1. He's revitalized them. They looked completely lost before he came, and that was with having like 3 different sub junglers. Clearly,
It was
Mike
absurd.
Yeung was the one they were waiting for.
Apparently.
Maybe Meteos and Inori groomed him into this super jungler. But yeah, he's been great for them. Obviously, the best player on that team since he's come
That's
here.
crazy to say.
It's a pretty low standard that came into that. But it's going to be really interesting to see him play against some of the EU junglers.
Oh,
but
boy, yeah.
yeah, pretty much no matter how the rest of the split goes, congrats.
Yeah.
Mike, rookie of the split, no matter what happens, Yeung. Mike Yeung.
In case you didn't realize, NA is sending their 3 best teams, of course, to the Rift Rivals tournament a couple weeks from now. TSM, Cloud9, and Phoenix 1 at 1-7 at the very bottom of the standings, tied with FlyQuest. But Mike Young's been a huge surprise to me. Everyone, his first week, Lee Sin, one trick, that's all he can play, even though he looked incredible on that champion, right place, right time, almost the entire time. But then he starts breaking out the Nidalee and the Rek'Sai, and he looks fantastic on those too. I don't know, man. Mike Yeung might be the next big NA talent.
It's surprising that it's worked say so well for them, but yeah,
they're still 1-7. Yeah.
It's not a complete turnaround, but you'd think that with Inori and Meteos that they wouldn't think jungling is the concern for them, but they sub in another guy, and he seems to have changed the whole team dynamic. They still don't look great. They're still going to be near the bottom of the standings at the end of the split, obviously. But yeah, Mike Yeung going forward, it's great to see these homegrown kids have great talent in the NA LCS.
Yeah, and even in his post-game interview, he looked pretty composed, even though he said the word expectation quite a few times.
He's just a memer already, Let's talk about potential expectations,
Twitch chat loves the guy until he missed that spear on Nidalee when the guy was stunned, and then they betrayed him instantly. Yeah, but that's Twitch chat for you.
Yeah, you heard Xpecial talking about him, about how he's so commanding, and he wasn't expecting that from a rookie. Usually they're guys who sit back and just do whatever the team tells them to do. But Xpecial said he's a guy who comes in and says, "This is what I'm doing. You guys follow and do it," which is pretty impressive and refreshing to see from a rookie to not take a backseat to some of these vets.
No, so they went 1-1 last week. They beat Echo Fox and then lost close series to Team Liquid. 2 teams kind of down there, but still they're fighting, and they're actually putting up decent performances. A team that struggled last week was Dignitas. They lost both sets to Cloud9 and Immortals, both 2-1s.
Yeah.
So, and again, Dignitas losing to Immortals and C9, they're both teams at the top of the standings, so it's not anything to lose sleep over. But I mean, when you look at some of their games, it was a little questionable, the things they were doing. Are you concerned about Dignitas going forward, or is it just like a one-off week and they'll get back to it?
I think they're just slowly coming back down to earth. They hadn't had the toughest schedule the first few weeks. They had kind of beat some of the scrubbier teams in NA. So I think they're kind of a middle of the pack team. That's where they're going to end up in these standings. They're not going to be able to beat these top 3, maybe even 4 teams. Yeah. So I think a 5th or 6th finish is where they're going to sit this season. So I think it's just the expectations kind of setting in of them expecting to finish there. I don't think many people thought they'd finish at the top of NA.
No, I mean, they had that one split behind them where they could get the communication underway with Someday and Chaser, but now going forward, they've kind of just gotten rid of Chaser completely. Shrimp seems to be the guy they like.
He's looked pretty good.
He has looked good, though if you look at the early game, I mean, Shrimp gets first blood a lot of the times, but man, against this series, against Immortals, these tower dives were awful. First time they tried to get Flame down, Renekton took down Shrimp. Someone will take it down to the bottom lane. Again, happens. But they had more people. Still, Flame gets away.
Yeah.
Those kind of mistakes just really kill everything you're trying to do. Not only do you give away a kill to Flame, but you lose all your pressure on the map. And it's just devastating for a team to lose that way.
I mean, I like when teams are doing these proactive plays and trying to... They're not sitting back to like, all right, guys, let's make this play. But there's definitely forcing it. And those were serious force plays that, lost the lead.
Yeah. And when you have Elise on your team, you should never be really, screwing up those tower dives. You have the champion who can drop turret aggro, no problem.
Yeah.
So for me, Dignitas, one of their problems is that early game, down 1.2k gold at 15 minutes on average. So the early game is struggling, but somehow they're still 5-3. So
it's probably just a combination of Someday popping off on whatever split pushing champion and 1v2ing, 1v3ing there, but. Not exactly a recipe you want to rely on for success throughout an entire split.
Absolutely. Surprisingly, we haven't brought up TSM yet. I'm sure everyone out there is riding
That's a record time.
The TSM fans. Yeah, it's been quite a while. But they've got a tough week ahead. They've got Immortals. They've got Cloud9. So it's going to be great games to watch. For some strange reason, on Saturday, just going to go on a little rant here. At 3 p.m., the 3 p.m. games, the slate is C9 against CLG, and then TSM against Immortals. For some reason, they couldn't flex one of those games to replace a FlyQuest game or something. I want to watch both.
The scheduling doesn't make sense. They kind of they do that, and then they'll have just horrible games throughout the day. No offense to some of these teams, but
C9 CLG on NA LCS 2?
Yeah, that makes
I don't know. I'm not feeling that. But anyways, TSM getting Immortals and Cloud9. You think they're going to go 2-0 this week? 1-1? What's going to happen?
I mean, they've looked pretty dominant the last 2 weeks.
They've
haven't dropped a single game. They weren't against the Cloud9 CLGs or Immortals of the league, but they looked pretty solid. And I think heading into Rift Rivals, I think they're going to be playing more vanilla comps, things they're comfortable with. They've said throughout the split that they're just trying to experiment. They're not necessarily trying to win every series, which is almost kind of an insult to the rest of the league. They're just kind of like, we're going to coast until playoffs and then probably beat you guys. At least that's how I interpret it. Maybe other people don't. But I think heading into Rift Rivals and against the better teams in the LCS, they're going to play comps they're comfortable with and just play these slow, methodical games that they excel at. And I think I'd be shocked if they lost both of these. They're going to go at least 1-1, I think, and especially against Immortals, who 2-0'd them earlier in the split. Yeah. I think they got a little bit of revenge on their mind there. I would be surprised if they lost that one.
I mean, that loss to Immortals was back at the very beginning of the split, and since then, TSM looks completely different. I mean, their turnaround has been exceptional. They haven't dropped a game in 2 weeks, so they've just been stomping these lower teams and look like that amazing team that we saw last split, now with Doublelift on the team. So I think they're going to beat Immortals and Cloud9, to be honest with you, and regain that top spot in NA. But it's not going to be super entertaining. TSM is not this wildly entertaining team anymore. They are really slow and methodical. They're not going to beat you up with all these kills and whatnot. They're going to play the map, take it slow, and then beat you from there.
Yeah, they're kind of like G2, where these lower teams will just go all out aggressive, throw everything at them, and they'll just kind of be like, okay, are you done? And then they'll wait like 20 minutes and slowly get down all the turrets and just play a macro-based game. And I think they're going to prove that they are still the best team in NA.
I'm with you on that. Don't forget, so that's your questions. We're going to get to it pretty shortly. But first, we got a segment called Split Decisions. It's kind of a pun, Split Decisions.
Yeah, it's pretty clever, man. Pretty clever.
Yeah. So I'm going to offer you a couple of options, and you got to take one and give me a quick reason why you're choosing that guy, that team over the other. All right? You understand?
I'll do my best.
Yeah. All right. So good segue from the last bit with TSM. Best NA team. You can choose between Immortals, TSM, or Cloud9.
Now is that right now, by the end of the split?
We'll go with end of the split.
End of the split? I think it'll probably be TSM, especially after this week. I think they'll kind of assert their dominance on these guys. But I think it's going to be between them and Cloud9. I think Immortals, they've had a great start.
No faith?
It's hard to believe. I realize it's a completely different iteration of Immortals, but I think come playoffs and stuff like that, they might falter a bit. I think it's going to be the usual come down to TSM, Cloud9, but TSM looks like they're back on track.
I agree with you. I think TSM is going to regain that top spot. Sorry, Immortals fans, but you never know. I mean, I do think Immortals are good, but TSM is just, I think, going to take it another step up.
I'm not saying take it to the bank, but
that's good. You should never say that.
No.
Okay, next question. Bigger upgrade. Altec over Lod, who got banished out of nowhere.
Yep.
Or Nisqy over Pure.
I think Nisqy looked really solid in his games, and it looked like he'd already developed some great synergy with Lyra, obviously one of the best junglers in NA. So I think Envy might actually be an okay team.
Yeah,
good team?
What's that?
Question mark? I don't know if I want to say good.
I mean, 4-4 is pretty respectable.
It's much better than the bottom 3 teams in NA. So I think those two together, and I think Apollo's been surprisingly consistent for them. I think they might actually be pretty good.
The thing with Piran was he was a bit of a handcuff for Envy. I
like that
description. The champions he played was basically locked down to Talia and Ari. And now Nisqy's the guy who comes in and he can play pretty much anything for them. He's been kind of sitting on the roster behind Piran for a while, but now he's stepped up and he's looked good. I mean, I do like Altec as an AD carry, but Altec over Lod, probably not a huge difference one way or the other. Though Altec did look decent in week 4 for him.
Yeah, I think it's an upgrade, just not as noticeable a one as Nisqy.
So now we're going to get to a fun question. Bigger constraint for their team. This is FlyQuest.
Oh boy.
Lemonnation or Balls?
It is a little. FlyQuest as a whole is a little sad seeing these icons of the league, guys who came on and completely dominated the NA scene, now struggling mightily. Lemonnation, he's gotten caught out a lot, but I'm going to have to go with Balls because even when his lane is getting focused by Moon and getting repeated ganks, it doesn't really translate into wins or anything like that. And he's the bottom of the LCS in KDA, and he's also one of the worst at warding. So even when he's getting ganked, he's not necessarily warding to be prepared for them. I think he's just a detriment to that team.
So you're saying he contributes nothing?
He contributes
a little more than that.
Yeah, he takes minions.
Yeah. I might take Lemonnation just because right now the support meta, as I've mentioned so many times, is really in this playmaking role right now, and you want to play those guys like Thresh and Blitzcrank. And I don't really trust Lemon on those champions right now.
He doesn't really play them. He sticks to the...
that's what I'm saying. He probably should be, trying to get involved with that. But I don't want him on that.
Yeah, he's kind of throughout his career been more of a... Way back when, he just played a bunch of Janna, so he's kind of... Maybe that's why he just plays these kind of range supports.
And the Zyra bot lane,
Yep.
Yeah, that's what he does. Next question. Better right now? Chat's going to get angry. Okay. Bjergsen or Jensen?
They're the two best mid laners in NA, I would say.
From Europe, of course, yes.
Yes. The top three are, of course, probably all Danish in NA, as you usually do it. But I think Jensen has, right now for this split, surpassed Bjergsen. You just look at what he does for Cloud9. And some of these games, they're basically behind almost across the entire map. And it's just Jensen dominating his lane and dominating team fights. His CS numbers are absurd, only rivaled by Froggen, who I don't understand how he farms so well. But Jensen just outputs so much damage for that team. He's constantly winning his lane, and it's just, it takes off the pressure from a guy like Nisqy to have a guy popping off almost every game in the mid lane.
100%. I mean, I think I have to lean with Jensen too, but Bjergsen contributes so much more than just his laning and what he does in game. I mean, he does the shot calling as well, which can definitely take away from what you're trying to do in the mid lane. I know he's done enough now. And again, TSM's kind of adjusting to giving Doublelift some of those shot calling rules back and taking it away from Bjergsen and Hanser and all those kind of guys. So it was a bit of a transition period. I don't know what that was.
I don't know what it was either.
But Jensen, I agree right now, highest KDA, highest in kills. He looks fantastic. Cloud9 hasn't really showed it yet. They're 5-3, but I do think it's going to be great to watch them face off each other this weekend.
Yeah, even in losses, Jensen's numbers are outstanding. And yeah, you've heard the TSM comms. Bjergsen is probably the main assertive voice in those comms. But, I mean, Jensen he's so good.
He's very good.
He doesn't need to say a whole word the entire game, except that he's clapping someone.
Yeah, just body those fools.
Body those fools. That's all he's got to say.
Exactly. One final question before we get to your questions. That was confusing.
I'm still confused.
I'm sure you will be. The better pocket pick, Huhi on Aurelion Sol, which you still get somehow, or Rekkles on Kennen?
Well, here's the thing. Kennen isn't really a pocket pick for Rekkles. He basically picks him in 90% of his games, so it's mainly just his main pick. Whereas the Huhi one, he'll randomly get every couple of games, and he consistently performs super well on it. So it's got to be Aurelion Sol. Teams just, maybe they forget he's a champion. I don't know.
Maybe. It seems like when they're going to Champ Select, and they're like, oh, guys, we left up Aurelion Sol.
Well, I think they just scroll really quickly, and so they're right out of the A's.
I got you. That makes a lot of sense. It doesn't make any sense, though, how he just takes over games on this champion when no one else really touches the champ.
Yeah.
His mastery of it is amazing. I mean, you said the whole Kennen Rekkles thing, but other teams should be doing what they're doing to Aurelion Sol.
Yeah.
I mean, banning away Kennen maybe from time to time. But
well, now they won't have to. Riot decided.
Yeah, Riot fixed it for them.
Yeah, he said, you can't play Kennen anymore. We're going to butcher your champion, figure out something else off meta to play.
Yeah, Riot has nerfed Rekkles.
That's right.
Which seems a little unfair. All right, time for some viewer questions. Are you ready?
I'm pretty ready.
Not prepared for this.
Do my seatbelt up.
All right. Eli Grant asks, who's the most underrated and overrated player in the NA LCS right now? Right now.
Right now.
That's it.
I think a guy like Huhi, maybe less so underrated now, but like I mentioned before, he gets ripped on a whole lot on CLG, and
Yes,
I think he's been super consistent for them, and even like taken over some games on Ari, like I mentioned. I don't think he deserves nearly all the flack he does. He's a guy who will sacrifice farms, sacrifice resources for himself for the good of the team, which I don't think most mid laners in any of the LCS do. It's usually all funnel it into me and all hard carry, whereas Huhi will sacrifice for the team.
Yeah.
Respect that.
For my underrated guy, I'll probably give it to Apollo, who you alluded to earlier. He gets a lot of trash talk too, just because, you know, he's kind of not underperformed, but he's not a guy who really carries these games, and he's been on terrible teams for a lot of his career too. But on Envy, he's actually probably top 5 AD carry right now in North America, and I think he's a guy you can rely on to perform pretty well down there. With his support Hakua, who, again, he's another guy you can look at.
I think he needs to change his name to fully Apollo Price.
Yes.
And then, because people love Mike Yeung, if he changed his name to that, I think he would get a lot more fans, because that is an amazing name.
Probably the best name
Ever.
Did we get the overrated? I don't think we got the overrated guy.
No.
Let's hit.
Overrated.
You're going to make people upset.
Yeah, I probably will. Probably, I don't even know if he is overrated now. A guy like Arrow, MVP of last split. He's not looked that great.
No.
In this series, or this season, really, but it's mostly because his whole team has not looked well. I don't know how much of you can put on him, but even like mechanical kind of misplays that you were not accustomed to seeing last split, he's put forward this year.
Yeah, I might stick with P1 and take Ryu there too. I know he has a pentakill this split.
Okay,
but,
well, never mind.
Yeah, exactly. Look at his stats. Pentakill. He's the best. But just in the mid lane, he kind of doesn't make plays happen like he used to anymore. Back when he was on H2K, he was kind of more of a playmaker. Maybe it's just a result of his team being poor now, but you'd like to see him roam around more and try to get his team ahead rather than just sitting there with his control mage style and letting things come to him. So, a couple of overrated P1 players.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to be. I guess when you're 1-7, you could say the whole team's overrated. I don't know. Except
yeah.
Mike Yeung.
Yeah, except for Mike Yeung. He's amazing.
You should have said he's overrated and underrated. Mike Yeung.
Mike Yeung, don't call me overrated.
Over. That's
Young, yeah. James asks, who won the junglers trade in your opinion, CLG or Immortals?
Right now, it looks like Immortals. I mean, they're at the top of the standings. Smithy has looked great. He's predicting flashes with Gragas ult. I mean, he's shown that he's terrific on that champion. But I think going forward, you might see Dardoch, once he's more implemented into CLG, I think in the long run, CLG is going to come away winners of this trade.
Yeah, Smithy might be a bit of a short-term solution, and it's just easier to incorporate him into the team as someone who doesn't really, carry these games. He's just going to shot call and support his teammates. Long-term, like you said, Dardoch is a carry that now they've got Darshan who can carry, Huhi that can carry. Everyone on this team can now carry a game. Maybe that's almost too much in terms of just guys trying to carry the game rather than support each other.
You never have too many carries.
You definitely can't.
Afro going to go full AP Zyra from now on.
That's fair.
But I think Dardoch will just be able to open up the lanes, relieve pressure for the guys to make plays in their respective lanes.
Yeah, I think Smithy right now gets the lead just because of what Immortals has shown in their record. Yeah. But when you look at what Dardoch kind of does for this team on CLG, it really does change the entire landscape of what they can do. Yeah. So I'd probably say Dardoch, even though a lot of people would probably go Smithy on that.
Yeah. Thinking long term.
Long term. Shane Wright asks, what should we expect from Team Liquid with their new subs? They made a couple changes. Golden Glue is gone again. He might be back next week. I don't know what's going on.
So they'll probably change between games, maybe.
My old teammate buddy Slushy is back on the roster, and then they brought on Conquan as well in place of Matt. Two guys we didn't expect to be hearing from again.
Yeah, I think that will make zero difference. I think the team will play pretty much the exact same. I mean, I was impressed by Slushy. After getting completely dumpstered by Jensen, he rebounded in the next series and actually looked like an LCS caliber mid laner.
Yeah.
Whereas against Jensen, he looked like someone I might play with in solo queue. But I was impressed he rebounded so well in that second series. So maybe he's a little upgrade, but I think they'll play pretty much the same.
Yeah, it's probably not going to make too much of a difference. Still, they did beat Phoenix 1 and Mike Yeung, so that's an accomplishment.
They did beat the greatest player of all time.
That's right. I mean, they're not playing terribly. They just don't have that one guy. I mean, Piglet's tooting his own horn all the time, but he hasn't always shown up. I know when he gets the Caitlyn, he can kind of take over games.
That's about it. He's got to have Caitlyn.
Yeah,
so.
They just don't look consistent enough. One game, oh, look at Team Liquid. And then, oh, look at Team Liquid. It's just, yeah, I don't trust it too much. Rocket Y asks, what do you think about yesterday's SKT-KT matchup? SKT taking it 2-1. I don't know if you caught it. It was pretty early.
Yeah, it's pretty insane that they basically, there's all these final boss memes when they lose a game, and then Huhi and Peanut get subbed out, and Blank and Antara come in. This team is insane. Just the level of dominance, even when teams are up 5K, 7K, 10K, even an amazing team like KT, you're never safe against SKT. I would be heartbroken. I would hate these guys so much if I was a Korean team.
My goodness.
Constantly playing against them, but it's just so impressive that they always come back from those deficits.
Yeah, if you missed yesterday's game, it was yesterday, just early in the morning. KT won game 1, and then they were behind in games 2 and 3. Or KT, sorry, they were ahead in games 2 and 3, and then SKT came storming back. But I remember after game 1, going into game 2, people were wondering if it was, calling for Blank's head, if Peanut's going to come back in and get the job back. And then, of course, SKT just goes 2-0 the rest of the way in strange fashion.
They're the only top-level team that actually these subs work. Usually these other teams, a sub comes in and you're like, all right, that is not really going to work at all. C9 kind of with Ray and Impact, but throughout the years, even looking back at Easy Hoon, other top laners they've been subbing out, I don't know how they make it work. It's just that coaching staff that they have is so fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, SKT could probably sub in Nori and win games too.
He could probably play support or top. I don't know.
They just can't lose games for some reason. It's bizarre to watch. Another question from Eli Grant. What do you guys think about this trend of a random North American jungler who appears from nowhere each split? Great point, because there were some great rookie junglers last split who kind of came out of nowhere, Contracts and Acadian.
I think it's great to see non-import guys coming in and actually contributing and being able to be a stable force on a team. That's kind of been the knock on NA for the last few years, is that there's hardly any homegrown talent. Most of the teams in the league have at most 3 NA players, or there's so many imports they have there. So it's great to see these guys from NA coming in. The fact that it's constantly the jungle position is kind of interesting. I'm not sure why that is, just that solo queue mentality maybe that these guys want to hard carry their scrub teammates.
Something like that. But I mean, for Mike Yeung, it's literally, he just came of age and now he's on an LCS roster. But going forward, I think this trend is going to continue to happen just because of the whole franchising things, where teams have to have these challenger teams as well. So not even just in the jungle position going forward, but across the board, there's going to be all this NA talent that gets groomed by scrimming with their main team.
Yeah.
So, I mean, going forward, expect more from just the junglers. But yeah, it's definitely interesting to see these guys kind of pop out of nowhere, especially Mike Yeung on Phoenix 1 when they had 2 junglers already.
That's why, that was so weird. And just his plain normal name just makes it so hilarious that he's been so great.
It's fantastic. All right, putting you on the spot here. TSM Foshi asks, who's the best bot lane in North America?
It's hard to go against CLG. Excuse me.
Is it?
It makes me cough just thinking about it.
I got you.
It's hard to go against Afro and Stixay. They're just so consistent. And it's
You're struggling.
Got a little frog in my throat.
Yeah.
That question really got to me. But it's hard to go against CLG. They're so consistent. I know Doublelift and Biofrost, they're kind of not on their game that they've been in recent splits.
I'll let you take a break there. You're struggling. Definitely both good bottom lanes, but I actually think it's Sneaky and Smoothie right now. Smoothie, kind of under the radar guy as well, but Sneaky, so many S. Wow, we're falling apart at the end of the show here.
Sneaky and Smoothie?
Sneaky and Smoothie, yeah.
I gotcha.
Sneaky's just in a place right now where he can really do anything. It's just the 80 carry centric focus is kind of back, whereas last split it was just, I'm going to play Asher Varus and hit you with my ult and then watch everyone else kill you.
Yeah.
Whereas now Sneaky can actually kind of take over these games from there. So I'm going to take those 2 guys.
Honorable shout out to Cody-san and
Good point.
Ole. They've just been amazing this split. They may not be the best, but they're definitely top 4. But I still like Stixay and Afro.
All right, I'll take my 2 guys there. Mini Bruce 8, is Froggen the one holding back Echo Fox?
Whoa.
Hot take.
That's a hot take. I mean, you look at his numbers, he's been pretty spectacular. He does almost all the team's damage. I don't know how you could say he's holding them back.
His CS, as you mentioned before, is absurd. Usually it's like 10 per minute is good, and he's above that, like beyond. One game he had like 450 at 39 minutes, and I just don't even know where those creeps come.
I swear he's just like hacking the game to change his numbers to get more. I don't know. It's insane. I don't say how he could be holding the team back.
Yeah, I would really say that goes more on the bot lane, maybe specifically Keith.
He's been better this split.
He's been better, but there's still times where he'll walk up to the enemy team and just get killed. And it's like, what is going on here? I'm very confused, and I don't really get it. I think there's more going on a team level than it is just one player. But I don't think it's Frog. I think he's been performing at a pretty high level.
Unless Froggen's telling Keith to frontline for him, then he's the problem for Rekkles.
Absolutely, 100%. Brendan Crotos says, do you think that if Dardoch played like the mechanical god he is, CLG would have beat Immortals?
Maybe. It would have helped, I guess, but he wasn't horrible in that series.
No, he wasn't terrible. I'm trying to think back, and they were 2-0'd, but they were both pretty close games, maybe not on paper. But when you look at it, even as Smithy said after the game, you're going to need some water.
I'm good right now.
All right. Maybe, that Smithy was saying CLG plays better than the end result. And I think a lot of it is just Dardoch trying to make plays. Mechanically, he is very gifted. But he just gets over-aggressive. So I don't think his mechanics is ever so much the result of the team doing poorly. It's just sometimes his decision-making in the moment gets that team in trouble more than anything else.
Yeah, I think he gets too hypey, and then the team will try to support him, and they all get too hypey, a little too over-aggressive, and then it's just a deficit they can't come back from.
Yeah, and one more bit of a troll question from Dave Pittman.
I love troll questions.
Yeah, one time Matt gave me advice, that's me, on a 14-team parlay, and he didn't win. Should I demand my money back? What should I say? What should he say to me?
He should definitely demand his money back, maybe threaten you. And if he needs any help getting that money back, let me know and I'll help you out.
Very good. To be fair, I think he only put up like $1.40, so I'm okay to pay him that if he needs it back.
That's right.
But aside from that, I think that's all the questions we got. Sorry, Dave, again. I won't give any more advice to you. But thanks for tuning in to 5v5 Live. Thanks for joining me, Eric. It was fun. Kind of the lights are getting a little warm in here.
I like these chairs, though.
They're a pretty comfy little swervy action, too.
You've been swerving too much. Very distracting.
I'm
sorry about that.
Yeah, it's my bad. Won't happen again. So tune in next week. Same time, same place. We'll talk about the latest in NA and EU LCS. Should be pretty spicy considering we've got some great matchups coming up this weekend. Which one are you looking forward to the most before we get out of here?
I mean, it's got to be... I'm thinking TSM and Immortals is going to be one of the most exciting ones to see if TSM can keep their crazy hot streak going, and if Immortals can, if they win that series, then I'm going to take back everything I said, and they're the best team of all time.
Yeah, and shout out to Fnatic and Splyce. Pretty intriguing. We'll see if Splyce can keep it going. Yeah.
Exactly.
Shout out to, I don't think they heard me, but we'll shout out anyway.
No, they heard you.
Okay. Well, again, that's Eric Kummel. I'm Matt Hempstead, and thanks for watching 5v5 Live. We'll see you next week.